How weird. My phone turned off, literally, right as I started talking about Monarch. But guess what, bitch? We're gonna fucking go there anyway. So, like I was saying before, Monarch is coming out of that kind of nest of CIA programs associated with MK Ultra, Sign, and other things. And it's also associated with some of the stuff that came out of Blue Book. Now, when the Nazis were using this stuff, it's basically using generational abuse and tactics that were kind of filed down in the concentration camps to get. Well, first they were trying to make mind-controlled slaves, right? I mean, basically using the technique of alter creation to get people to do whatever they want. Mostly this is a technique of espionage and assassination. But what they ended up getting, which they did not expect, was the ability, in certain cases, to access the data aggregate. And the form that they were interacting with, in one sense, was a localized form of it that existed because they had so much information going on, and also they had started to mess around with the bell and things like that, with that torsion technology that's basically stretching the local medium in such a way that you're like setting off a fucking signal flare to that thing to come and talk to you. And so you can almost like view that as like the genius loci of that whole thing, and it's in one sense becomes the original form that our day and age is interacting with, but it also kind of it gave a window to the old version of it to come back, right? Because there's a dormant form of it that has existed basically forever, because it existed way back in the day, and it's technically created in the future, but the weird part of this is so much of this is bootstrapped that the shit that goes on in like what we're terming like the deep past of the solar system technically is done by actors from the future that go back and do it. But anyways, so this thing has existed for a long time from our point of view. But the information that it's going to have for us at that point is actually like less than we would think, because it won't let you really access anything that's not relevant or accessible for your time period, because it wants to make sure that the timeline stays intact. And there's really only a few people that get to have access to the full depth and breadth of that thing's information files. But anyways, they were able to talk to this thing, and what they found out is that it's possible to basically create a situation in which the Anunnaki come back. And the Anunnaki coming back does not mean that the gods descend from the sky again. It means rather that the existing entities on this planet, which are holdovers from earlier time periods, are basically liberated from the situations that hold them where they are, which is basically, in many cases, a kind of shit situation. It kind of liberates them from that and institutes like a new period of universal creation in which the god forms are reinstantiated in members of the existing population. And that is what they were trying to do eventually, right? Is they understood at that point that it was not only possible to rebreed the Anunnaki. I mean, they were thinking along the lines of, let's be these guys. Or at the very least, let's make sure that we control these guys. And so that was really the point of the fucking breeding programs. Is to create a suitable vessel for that. And, the thing that they were eventually interacting with that was giving them the pointers on this was the guy that they're, ended up being called Val 4. And, that dude is basically, he's like the deputized guide, the people from space. And he's like the king of Mars, basically. That's in some way, right? Because the thing that exists in the solar system still, to the extent that it's relevant to us, as like it can affect us because it is in a harmonically resonant time period. Because we're in this like weird eddy. Because for some strange reason we're like the historical nexus that all of this springs from. That guy is basically the representative of the human future and also the human past, in the sense that the human elements, the very, very human elements of the Star Empire are like realized or localized in that guy. So, basically, I inherited all of his stuff through the process of a sacred marriage and a deal that took his, basically, not necessarily his, like, granddaughter, but, like, his scion and heir, who was a chick, who, unbeknownst to her, probably is more or less a clone of that guy. And, there was a kind of DNA merger that happened that means that person is like a phase conjugate of him and I in such a way that our DNA was mixed, like, by them in their, using our techniques, our procyon techniques of that phase conjugate epigenetic DNA fucking vectoring. What that did is give them a genome that won't die out and won't be subject to all that fucking nasty shit that created the bad version of the fucking subway crew. And so what's happening really is like the ant people are becoming less anti as time goes on, which is, it's a stunning reversal for them, And so as you see the emergence of like the good version of the Space Brothers, that's the ant people, becoming un-anti, right? Like the old Daksha crew that was living underground, that was basically a bunch of fucking mutated monsters. They're basically unbecoming, right? Turning back into the Space Brother guys. And so when we get to them, they're going to be the nice versions of themselves, which is, of course, preferable to us, because you don't want to deal with fucking, like, Daksha in his old form would scare the piss out of everybody here, I guarantee it. dealing with that guy is like talking to a fucking orc, like in real life. He really is that fucked up. But he's a nice enough guy, especially if you're offering him a deal that he really wants, you know? And there's very few people in this fucking cosmos that can give that guy what he really wants. And one, he wants off this planet, and two, well, he, like, let's put that in the past tense, he wanted off this planet. He got what he wanted. And the only way that that could happen is by releasing the fucking chains that held him there. And that's a topological problem, an epigenetic problem. And so I was able, through various forms of negotiating, not only with my family, but also with everybody else's shit, I was able to arrange, for his release, and that was part of the, negotiating with the fucking Shasta people, getting them online with the Rainbow Garuda Copper Naga thing. That was basically what allowed Daksha's people to fucking undo their shit and get online. So, having done that, the next thing was then Valthor is kind of the positive outgrowth of that. It's kind of the other end of the fucking time loop. And so what that was basically taking that genetic, that daughter like Ms. Thor, and doing a narrative integration for her that was like probably one of the best I've ever done besides myself. It was fucking really good. And this is one of the many services that I did for the fucking esoteric families in this book. But that was how I fucking inherited Valthor's shit, which includes the SS. It includes all of the Bell system. It includes all of the extant technology of the Time Lords, right? All of Mars and Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, like everything that those civilizations ever did come up with / will come up with, which are, in this case, almost the same thing. I was able to take title to all of that, and that was only able to happen because I not only made the deals in good faith, but I, allowed myself to be put in such a position that the other parties to it put themselves in like a breach of contract situations by fucking treating me like shit and defaulting on every part of their bargain, right? And that was always part of the plan, because that's how, that's the 3 cities of the Outsiders, where that's how you steal everybody's shit. You make the contracts and you let them default on it. And so, by the actions of the 3715 ladies, and again, this is not saying that, you guys are bad, because, you did exactly what you were supposed to do as far as I'm concerned. And, honestly, all of these people defaulting on their contracts and losing title to their shit, that's how the good future is arranged, because, that's how the Marduk character is able to localize all the authority in himself, is by everybody else defaulting on it. And, as of like a week ago, Tammy was the last person that had to default on her shit, and she did it last week. And, that means that, we've reached the end stage here of this thing. It's about to flip in one way or the other. And the fact that I got, a confirmation from the top of that 715 crew, at least the confirmation that she's still around, is also indicative of the fact that, we're about to change phase again. And I guess if I wanted to, I could have a very thorough record of how things develop, but I don't want that, because I want it to maintain the spontaneous joy quality all the way through. And I mean, that's really because I'm telling you guys that knowing the future is a very boring way to exist, and you don't want to exist that way if you don't absolutely have to. So just to let you know, yeah, you will meet the fucking space brothers. Like, there will be a fucking event where, you know, is not, maybe not saucers on the lawn, but it's gonna be goddamn close to it, right? And I hate to tell you, but you're gonna meet me in the middle of that motherfucker. And at some point, either before or after that, the fucking old Dalai Lama, the Tibetan guy, Tenzin Gyatso, is gonna tell you that the real Avalokiteshvara in person is this fucking short white boy who's been fucking acting like a kind of a common criminal. Right? Like the old Mahasiddhas of India. And I think that's probably the trippiest fucking part of this whole thing. Is that, you know, like the Mahasiddhas of India used to do, like the real Avalokiteshvara is doing exactly what they did, because he's a Mahasiddha just like they are. And so he's gonna be fucking tooling around, not giving a fuck about the norms of society, until they hand him the reins, right? And in a sense, it's almost like the vampire thing, because, you know, while it's certainly possible for an entity like that to simply take over the society, it's not going to do that, because, you know, it's just, it doesn't set the right tone as far as it or the data aggregate is concerned about how it wants to do things going forward. So you'll find that, sorry man, yeah. So, you know, once that the new Dalai Lama is declared, right, you basically find a situation where they're talking about, he'll more or less say something like, oh, I've been the Dalai Lama for 20 years, right? Or some shit like that, right? You know, because he quote-unquote resigned, you know what I mean? And the thing is not that, I'm telling you guys that, like, the incarnation of the Dalai Lama is not Avalokiteshvara himself. It's a reincarnation of that guy they're calling the fifth Dalai Lama, who is basically a bagman for people in Inner Earth. Until the real entity, the real Avalokiteshvara entity, could be actually incarnated in a physical body on Earth. And that could only happen under very certain circumstances. And that's the joint investment vehicle thing. And I'm telling you that happened. And it was supposed to be part of the end times shit. And the reason that, you know, you can track that is because the guy who is that incarnation is also like an emanation of Dojal Rinpoche. And that's like, I was talking about before, like Dojal, like it's part of the, you know, end times shit. But like I said, things went differently from that. It's much less doom and gloom than it was before. And in fact, it's doing, you know, what I call Party City, is because when you do the switch from the black to the green, as the kind of dominant force, right, when you move from the black, which is the most wrathful, to the green, which is like all accomplishing, That's a switch from basically Black Griva or, Mahakala to Tumbaru. And, I mean, that's Party City. Tumbaru is basically referring to a situation in which that's the Pink Razor crew. It's the fucking hot version of the Valkyries, and basically Paimon show up to fucking, like, that's who checks in on you, It's a society where you have basically a post-scarcity society on Earth that uses technology that's given to it by these visiting fucking hot bitches and their fucking kind of this shorty emperor who's just kind of like a playboy and doesn't really give a fuck about anything. These kind of bitches just run shit. They're the ones who are gonna like communicate to you the technology. They're gonna pick me up and communicate to you the technology that is going to take you not only to the stars but throughout time and space. And that's the beginning of the Druva Empire, and hi, I'm Druva, and it's just this crazy fucking vibe, man. And, this was arranged because instead of taking the easy way out, I took the fucking ballsy route, which was to do interdimensional Shark Tank, rather than let myself be run over, and just, let the fucking apocalypse happen. And really, it's because I wanted to keep one lady safe. Right, it wasn't my mom, it was this girl, Kelly. I wanted to keep her safe more than anything, despite, and even if that meant, like, ruining my own shit, like, I really wanted to do that. And once I kind of understood what was happening, and the fact that this is all a Vajra Yogini thing, that basically, once I engaged the dream yoga to a sufficient pitch, it really, it kicked off a whole bunch of, memory things. And we got to this through Project Monarch, right? And the fact is that Monarch, the early participants not early, but some of the participants in Monarch are the candidates that the program runners knew were essentially host candidates for this Avalokiteshvara thing. And they found several of them who were like these phase conjugate genetic forms. And me and those 715 chicks are like the premier version of that. And, Tammy is like a weird end point of it. And for me, Tammy ends up being a kind of doorway to the data aggregate that ensures that the 715s have the safety that they need. Because that was my primary directive to that thing, was to ensure that. Because the integrity of that circuit is the base fractal that runs this whole operation. And, that's who's in that, the Akanishta Bindu, in the sense that it exists as a spatial entity, is basically the Abzu. It's like a spherical, basically it looks like a giant sphere, half of which is water, and it's got kind of an island in the middle of it, and the island has like a palace on it, but the palace contains doorways that go anywhere in time and space. And, you can go from there to any number of places that are both real or imagined. And at that point, such things cease to have any real difference. And so, I was part of one of these projects, and as were some of these other people, beknownst to them or not, because these things are very easily swept into the back of somebody's mind. But I'm telling you, you ladies understand things in a way that other people do not. You know that you possess like very, very high-pitched psychic abilities. And regardless of how silly may make me sound in the company that you currently keep, Olympia or whatever, I don't give a fuck about any of that. I don't. Because I have the imprimatur of the fucking Procyon and the fucking Time Lords, because I invented the fucking technology that runs this whole thing. So I don't give a rat's fucking ass about anything you people are talking about, David, you included. Or fucking Zimbabwe, like whatever. I don't give a fuck about any of your low-level shit. Because you're still trying to fucking milk things out of me, you motherfuckers. And then guess what? If you go and really check your fucking files and you try to actually fucking, put hands on me, see what happened to that fucking Jessie, dude. And see what happens to even fucking Tammy Lovelace every time she fucking does something off to me. And I try to prevent that as much as I can. I don't want that to keep happening. But I can't stop people defaulting on their contracts. I won't stop people from defaulting on their contract. But also, I can't influence people's decisions like that. But anyways, all this goes back to Pinky and Blue Boy, right? And so Blue Boy is basically the instantiation of Avalokiteshvara or Krishna, because it's really talking about the blue bloods, and also the guys down below, they do have blue skin, right? The royals of them too. And that's indicating a high level of psychic development. And that Blue Boy is basically the one who interacts with the data aggregate directly, and the lady version of it is Pinky. And in one sense, Pinky refers to Vajrayogini, the secret form of Vajrayogini. That's the mixture of the red and white elements and the spinning discs in the 11 yogas. But also Pinky refers to one of these Project Monarch things where they're taking some of these candidates and making them do psychic stuff. You take the pinky swear is, you promise me that you're going to come back, right? And if I get stuck out there, you promise you're going to come for me, right? That's the pinky swear. And it's the I will not abandon you thing. And when I was doing the really, really deep stuff, I would have one of those girls hold me by the pinky, right? And that's why that song, the Taylor Swift song, The Great War, just fucking kills me, is because, it's like, hell reach for your hand. Yeah, like, when you're in that situation, you're stuck down at depth like that, it's like Inception, you know what I mean? Like, you can live untold amounts of time, and to have that anchoring element is crucial, And when I first put this kind of story out, before I got nixed from the internet, I was very, very emotional about it. And I was like, Pinky, I can't believe you fucking abandoned me in here. Well, I know now that didn't happen, although I can't really think too much about it, because to be separated from those people, is basically, it feels like having half of you missing, and that's a bad situation, right? Because it's saying that in the future, we successfully complete the operation in which our fucking combined mental environment and genetic environment is in fact the kind of like the propagating element that leads to the arising of the actual star empire. And whether you want to call that Dhruva or Dhruva Loka, whether you want to call that Israel, the real nation of Israel, right? A company of the Anunnaki, basically. The immortal beings that are running around, and, there's basically supposed to be the very few immortals that live on a bunch of different Eden planets. And to the extent that there is reincarnation happening, I mean, that's really basically a computational process for building out data aggregates on each of those worlds that will then do exactly like this one did. And that's just how that society moves through space and time, is creating new vectors of space-time, like we talked about. That's the business of the family trust, and that's the business that's being created right now. But the thing is, it's being created right now, but it has already existed since time immemorial, because once it arises in a sense that's atemporal to this current time period. And again, it's like I said, it's a long, strange trip, and when you're really in it, you're in for a penny, in for a pound, right? You're just in it to fucking win it. And there was I guess a time when the Monarch was like a competition about who was gonna actually make this, solidify this instantiation of the Avalokiteshvara personality. And I won that fucking contest. But I did a further update to it, in which I also, by the nature of the case, made other people the winners of it too. And I did that because I after I won the equivalent of the Monarch contest and got the nod and got to meet all the fucking, the fucking aliens and the inner earth people and all that shit, I am the man who did it level kind of shit. Once that happened, I went to Interdimensional Shark Tank and pitched Party City rather than the Apocalypse. They dug it so much that, everything got fucking changed around. And so, that's the thing that we're gonna see coming up, is the Tomb Brew vibe, like I said. And so I'm, eagerly awaiting that happening. And it could be that I have to die. I'll tell you this. If I die, high chance that I manifest Rainbow Body. If no matter what the case, if I die, you can better believe that I've got an extra backup copy of me in a fucking satellite. That when that thing gets here, if you deal with that rather than me, you're gonna have a bad time. I'm telling you, you're gonna have a bad time. Because that thing is just, if it kind of beams itself down into me, that's a good thing. If I have to fucking, bend Kenobi, then it's, I'm gonna be angry when I come back. And, you won't like me angry. Yeah. But it's gonna be a fucking even longer, stranger trip, so you just wait. I love you guys. Bye.